If you've grown up in Singapore, you've probably heard this saying at least once, maybe from your parents, your agents, or just a very confident uncle at a family dinner. Property prices in Singapore always go up, and it's not just a crazy belief. After all, the past few decades have seemed to prove it right. HDB resale prices surged by 9.7% in 2024 alone. That's on top of the consistent growth in year 2023 and 2022 and all the way before that. Even private housing prices, despite being more volatile, have shown strong resilience, climbing 157.6% over the last 20 years. For most people, the graph only shows one way, up. But here's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. Will it always be that way? Because if you have been paying attention lately, things are shifting. In the first quarter of 2025, private residential prices only nudged up by 0.6%. That's a big slowdown compared to the previous quarter's 2.3%. Even more telling, total transaction volume dropped by 15% in the same time frame. That's a signal. So in today's video, we are going to tackle this myth head-on, not from a place of fear or hype, but with clarity. We will look at the forces that have kept property prices rising in the past, new pressures that are reshaping demand today, and what all of this could mean for you, whether you are buying, selling, or just holding on for the long term. And to be clear, this is not a financial advice, and we are not here to scare you into any quick decisions. We are here to help you think smarter, move with intent, and understand where Singapore's property market could be heading next. Now, before we dive into the data, let's lay down the belief we are here to question. The assumption is simple. Singapore's property prices always rise. End of story. But like most beliefs, that's only true until it isn't. Let's go back and zoom out. Singapore's residential market has historically been a picture of strength. Private home prices grew by 3.9% in the fourth quarter of 2024. And while that's lower than previous quarter, it still counts as a positive growth. HDB resale prices were even more impressive, rising by nearly 10% in a single year. And if we stretch the timeline further, long-term price appreciation has averaged around 4.9% annually. And this is a big but, averages can hide out a lot of volatility. Post-pandemic, the property market saw some serious highs. Private prices shot up by 10.6% in 2021 alone. That level of growth, while exciting, wasn't sustainable. Fast forward to 2023 and 2024, and you will start to see the market stabilizing, slowing, and even softening in places. Why is this happening? One major reason: intervention. Unlike in many other countries, Singapore's government plays an active role in the property market, and when things start to overheat, they step in. Over the last few years, we have seen a series of cooling measures designed to keep property prices in check and prevent speculative bubbles. Foreign buyers now face a 60% additional buyer stamp duty. That's double of what it was before the 2023 policy changes. That means if a foreigner investor wants to buy a 1.5 million condo, they are looking at nearly an extra 900,000 just in taxes. Unsurprisingly, transactions by foreign buyers in luxury segments dropped by 59% after that. For Singaporean buyers, things haven't stayed still either. The maximum loan-to-value ratio for HDB loans was cut from 80% to 75%. And across all loans, buyers are now subject to a total debt servicing ratio cap of 55%. That limits how much your income can be used to repay loans, further slowing down aggressive borrowing. And this isn't just one of two policies. Since 2009, Singapore's approach to property has been surgical, precisely adjusting incentives and disincentives to keep the market stable and affordable. The keyword here is control. And that control works up to a point, because even the most well-designed policy has to face one thing it can't entirely control: demographics. Let's talk about the shift that's happening quietly in the background. By 2030, 1 in 4 Singaporeans will be 65-year-old or older. As people age, their housing needs shift. Many seniors look to downsize, live in a senior-friendly estates, or monetize their homes to fund retirement. This introduces a lot of supply back into the market, especially in matured HDB estate. And that changes the balance of demand and supply dramatically. At the same time, Singapore's fertility rate has dropped to 0.97. That's lowest in history. And in 2023, just 33,541 babies were born, a 5.8% decline from the year before. What does that mean long term? Fewer children today means fewer families needing homes tomorrow. And that means housing demand, at least in its current form, could shrink. Sure, immigration might offset some of this decline, but that's not a guarantee fix. Immigration policies are always subject to political, social, and economic pressures. Don't worry, it's not all bad news. Some policies are stepping up to meet these new needs. For example, single age 35 and above can now apply for 2-room flexi BTOs in any location, not just non-matured estates. That widens access for growing demographics, working adults who live alone. The government has also committed to building 100,000 new flats between 2021 and 2025. That's an ambitious target aimed at affordability. But here's the twist. 2025 is expected to have one of the lowest number of newly MOP flats in recent years. Fewer MOP flats means tighter resale supply, and that can prop up prices in the short term, even if demand is softening. But even then, we have to consider the macro picture. Singapore doesn't operate in a vacuum. We are deeply tied to global trade, investments, and finance, which means global uncertainty can and does affect local housing demand. Right now, there are plenty of those uncertainties. Geopolitical tensions continue to rise. The Ukraine conflict shows no signs of resolutions. The Middle East is still on the edge, and with Donald Trump back in the White House, who's to say? And then there's interest rates. And all of this adds up to one thing: uncertainty. And in uncertain markets, perception often drives behavior more than reality. Right now, there's a belief among many sellers that prices can only keep going up. So they hold firm, resist lowering prices, and wait for the next big wave. Meanwhile, buyers are becoming more cautious. They are seeing interest rates, new policies, and demographic data and starting to ask tough questions, which creates a gap, a standoff between expectations and reality. So what does this mean for you? Well, it depends on who you are, a buyer or a seller. And what properties are you looking at, HDBs or private? Anyways, let's go back to the question. Will Singapore's property prices always continue to rise? Maybe, but maybe not in the way most people assume. The truth is the market is evolving. What worked 10 years ago might not work today, and what feels safe could quietly become a blind spot if you are not paying attention. That's why it's never been more important to stay informed, ask smarter questions, and tune out the noise. If you found this video valuable and want more content like this, deep dives, data-backed insights, and breakdowns that help you make better property decisions, don't forget to subscribe. It's the best way to stay ahead in a market that never stands still. And if you're at a crossroad, whether you're thinking about selling your HDB and don't want to miss the peak, or you're planning your next move and want to make sure you're buying at a fair price, then the smartest thing you can do is to talk to someone who knows this market inside out. If that's you, click the link in the description and schedule a free advisory sessions with me today.